So I'd like to start by welcoming again Sarah and to say, Sarah, you're an entrepreneur. You set up, you created this company. Um, so how did you have this idea of creating Dressipi AI? And then what does Dressipi AI do to enrich product data? And uh, what is the reason why it's really important and effective for fashion brands and fashion retailers to enhance like their product data set? Would you like to kick this off?
Sure. So firstly, thank you everyone for being here. And quick intro. So my name is Sarah and I was one of the founders of Dressipi. And so initially when we set out to build Dressipi, originally it was actually a B2C service. So we could see, this is about 10 years ago now, but we could see that everybody was going online. All these fashion retailers were pushing product, but there was nobody genuinely trying to service the consumer. So you used to be able to go into a store and you'd have this amazing assistant who'd go, oh, I've got just the thing. And so you could say to them, I'm looking for a dress for a wedding. I want to look glamorous, but not too sexy, whatever. So, and you could ask this question and they would come back with a couple of things and they would know exactly what it was. And actually I was working in New York and I went into a boutique in West Village and this man, the guy looked at me and he'd never met me. He banished me to the changing room and he bought me 5 outfits, none of which I would have picked off the shelf, but they all looked amazing. And I bought all 5. And I thought, if he can do that to me, there's something in the way that he sees or thinks about me that is really exciting and important. So what we were looking at initially with Dressipi was saying, like, so we worked with these amazing stylists and we said, look, what is it? Why is it you can dress me better than I can dress myself? And they would say, well, actually, when I see you, I see that you are this kind of person, this kind of lifestyle. And then we said, right, amazing. Here's a dress, here's a jacket, here's a pair of trousers, here's a pair of shoes. What is it about that product that makes it work for me or not? And what is it about that product that allows us to put outfits together that look gorgeous on me and are relevant? So that was our starting point. And so we sat down with these 3 stylists, and they're some of the best stylists in the UK. And we started to kind of decode how their brains think about these products from a styling point of view. And so we ended up with this taxonomy or this labeling language that really was in the language of the customer, but also from a style point of view. And the business grew very nicely, but then we got approached by a couple of large retailers here in the UK who wanted to license that. And we then switched completely, turned off the B2C piece, and then we were completely B2B. But what's interesting about that, and I think, so depending on whether you're a luxury retailer or a high street retailer or a fast fashion retailer, so at the luxury end, your visual identity and your heritage language identity is really important. And that language is key. So how you talk about your products, how you talk about your brands, and no one knows that better than you. But what we are able to do at Dressipi is then take that and build that at scale, whilst at the same time giving and putting inside kind of invisible layer and language layer that allows us to translate that in terms of what the customer. So you might call it a timepiece, or you might have language that's really important for the brand perspective, but actually the customer's looking for a watch. You might not want to put the watch there, but we can actually translate that language into how the customer speaks and thinks about what they're looking for. Same thing with colors, another very good example. So what we understood was that actually, fashion is so complex. Generic recommendation engines are saying, people like you will say bought, but unfortunately for fashion, it doesn't really work because we are all different sizes and shapes and heights and weights and genders, and we have different preferences, and our tastes change all the time. So, we might all love looking at a pink sequin dress, but actually very few of us have the occasion to wear it. And actually some of us will look good in it, some of us will look bad in it. So understanding how those different features make someone look or feel good is important. So fashion is a deeply dynamic category. So understanding that we as customers, our tastes change. So if you have customers who buy into trend, then actually what they bought last year is irrelevant, particularly, so you've got your continuity, your basic items, that will be the same. But if it's a trend item and I bought big collars last year or velvet last year, I'm not going to buy it again this year, but I am a trend customer. So the question is, who of your customers have a propensity to buy into trend? And therefore, of this season's trends, which trends are they going to buy into? So what you care about isn't they bought that specific item, it's that they bought something that was trend-based or not. So understanding that those things change. Also, fashion is a category where we are buying things to go with things we already own. And most of us are looking for style advice. We do not know how to look good or what to wear. And so the reason shop windows are outfits on mannequins is for a very good reason, that we, the general public, need to be inspired. We need the guidance to know how to put those items together. So it's really about understanding how do those items go together, and then understanding that the business of fashion is complex. So when you're selling lawnmowers, you can buy 1,000 units and you can go and sell 1,000 units, that's fine. But if you're buying 1,000 units of a dress, you've got to figure out how many to buy in a size 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then if you buy it incorrectly, you get fragmented stock. And then you've got return rates. And there's all sorts of complications around how you sell fashion. So it was really important to us to build a solution that understood everything from the ground up and could really deliver on that from the ground up. And that's where the product data is so important. So I'll give you an example. So we have 23 different necklines, for example, which in many cases, it doesn't matter. But if you've got a lady with a large bust, right? And so a crew neck, you can't see the collarbone. A round neck, you can. And a scoop neck is even lower. Women with a larger bust, whether they're 19 or 99, will return the crew neck 5% more than they will the round neck. Now, if the integrity of that data is not understood, you will never find that return rate reduction in the algorithm. So getting that data right and then building those propensities around every product, every garment, every feature, every department means that you can start to really understand who your customers are. So it's not just about how to optimize your site. It's saying, well, actually, with this customer has interacted with these sorts of products. So it's mostly neutrals or brights. So there's so much you can tell about who your customer is and their color palette, their taste, their lifestyle, based on the sorts of products they interact with. So it's as telling, and I think with House of Brewer, this is a kind of a country, so there's lots of hunting, shooting, fishing. So it's a country lifestyle brand, and there's lots of premium and luxury brands on the site. But again, I can tell you that these people, they do these sporting activities in the country. They tend to go for, they tend to have a bright personality. They tend to buy brights, or they've got a more conservative view. So much you can tell about who your customers are based on how they are interacting with those products. So
sorry to interrupt. I really like the comparison with that you made at the beginning with a sales assistant. Okay, so the first thing you said is that you had a shopping experience where you met a shop assistant that immediately understood your body, your potential, your taste even, because then in the end you picked the garments that he suggested for you, understood most of all your fit. Okay, so I think, and that is based, it's a lot because I had the same experience with a sales assistant, and that's really nice when you find a sales assistant who gets your fit and can suggest the right products for you, and you are actually trying on clothes that fit you. That's an amazing experience, and I think this is like a lot to deal with the product characteristics. Okay, on one hand, which is objective, and on the other, has a lot to deal with the sales assistant experience. So, can I say that the product attributes or the objective characteristics are provided by Dressipi, by product data enrichment, and the experience, the ability to suggest the correct products is created by the retailer or by the brand or by, I don't know, other solutions? What do you think?
So Dressipi, the way that we work, so typically when we work with a retailer, we get their product feed, and there is the retailer language that they use, and then we will also we have our own taxonomy labeling system that we create, and we have 3 types of data. We have the physical data. So if often what we find for most retailers is this is a manual process. So even though they've got the data, sometimes they've got junior buyers or junior merchants who are doing that, who are adding that data layer. And so just human error, even with the best will in the world, you just have human error in that process. So partly it's about scaling that quickly for the retailer. But then, so the physical data, we end up with a very detailed view, which can either sit alongside the retailer data or can replace it depending on what they want to do. And then we have what we call the context data. So this is where the magic really happens. So we understand based on those physical attributes. So, the occasion, the fit, the flow, the style aesthetic. So we understand over the years that we've worked that these combinations of features equals this This is how it feels. This is how it flows. And that will be different for different types of customers. And then you've got what we call the dynamic data. So it may be that you've got these trends that bubble up over time. I mean, it's a bad example, but say Barbiecore, for example. And so we understand that that equals these combinations of features. So whether that's a persistent trend or a returning trend, we understand that those trends can be dynamic as well. So that's the data piece. In terms of how we find what's right for the customer, there's some brand styling that we will work with the creative team in the retailer to make sure that that brand styling is understood. So when we started working with House of Brewer, we hadn't done a lot of hunting, shooting, fishing before. So we sat and worked with them to understand really how do these items need to work together to be meaningful for the end user. And so we get that learning, but then that then builds at scale. So we start to build the training set and the training models. And then as the customers are interacting, then that will naturally learn through the machine learning and the AI tools that we have. But it's always working alongside the brand to make sure that it's delivering. Yeah, and the outfits do look gorgeous and they're all lovely and it's all in line with the creative direction, which, the brand DNA is so essential for any retailer. And that's part of what makes the brand powerful. So it's very important that our style team can work with those brands to facilitate that.
Yeah,
Does that
that's
answer your question?
yes, yes, and also opens up other questions. As far as I understand, it's not fully automated, but you also work closely with the brand to tailor, to personalize even more the shopping experience, correct? In order to absorb the DNA of the brand and let's say inject what are the characteristics of the brand and perhaps the customers of the brand into the AI in order to have more relevant suggestions, correct?
Exactly. So it will start off, so it will become increasingly automated, but the important thing is that everybody feels comfortable. So initially that first interaction with our style team and the creative team is important to make sure that the outfits, however they are displayed, or the style guidance is on brand. But then over time, as the system learns and as people buy from and interact with those outfits, it's learning what the customers are most likely. So you can create outfits specifically from the brand, and then you can create and personalize outfits that are more. What's important for us is so there's a brand, what the model's wearing is important, but then trying to replicate that in the style of each customer. So on the product detail page, the purpose of the outfits is it's saying like that is that tuxedo jacket is £300. It's quite expensive, but suddenly I can see how I can wear it for work, for the evening, at the weekend. So suddenly that's an amazing investment
Yeah,
piece, right?
yeah,
And it's that versatility, but with the brand DNA in place. But I only want to see things that are, I'm never going to wear a mini skirt again. I'm never going to wear, certain, I'm always try and cover my neck because of my wrinkles. So there's certain things that I think are important and that change with age. And so that's important to me. And so making sure that I'm seeing my best possible shop window as much as we can understand about the customer so that all of those outfit suggestions are the best for me, but also on brand. That's what we're trying to recreate, I suppose.
uh, again, this is really, really interesting. So you are actually trying to replicate what is the experience with a real sales assistant who
Yeah,
asks you, so what do you need these trousers for? What do you need these jackets? What's the occasion? When are you going to wear
exactly.
them at night, at an event or something like that?
Exactly.
And you're doing this by creating data in different dimensions
Yes.
to make everything like complete, the product information really as complete as possible.
Exactly. So for every single product, the system will now understand that, if it's, if you look at House of Brew, if it's a pair of plus fours, that's right for shooting and fishing, but it's probably not right for a casual look at the weekend type thing. So it will understand what occasions are most applicable for that product. And so you will only see the occasions that are relevant to you and to that product, and you will see the best items that go together, hopefully in the context of the brand, so that we are getting the brand DNA across, but also we're helping the customer to visualize and to see how they can wear that to maximize the benefit for them.
Yeah, you also mentioned returns. Returns are a very important business thing for fashion e-commerce. In some countries, they can go up to over 50%, but everywhere they're quite high. So, and I would say, keeping on the analogy with the offline shop experience, when you go and buy in a store, it's difficult. It's like, it's not difficult, but it's unlikely that you're going to return a product because you tried it. So, what is like your experience with returns and the use of Dressipi? Is it, did you have a chance to put it in practice, like to really see
Oh,
the data?
I could do a whole other hour and a half on returns. So we spent a lot of time on returns, and initially we were like everyone else, we were like, obviously it's a sizing issue. So we built this, we got all the fit model data for all the brands, and we got them to measure themselves, and then we just couldn't get we're getting like literally 0.5% reduction, like really small reductions. And I said, right, stop, let's take a step back, let's look at the data. So we then said, right, so let's look at a few things. Let's look at when people are bracketing. So when does a customer come in and buy the same product in any number of sizes over a 1 year period? So I might buy a size 10, send it back, buy a size 12. That's clearly a sizing issue. Then we say, right, how many people are doing what we call style, like wardrobing, trying things, like what's the right style for me? So I'm going to buy the same product category. I'll buy 3 different dresses, and I send in the same order. And then we said, looking at them then, so typically for a multi-brand retailer, the sizing piece is about 15 to 20% of the returns. The style piece is typically 30 to 50% of the returns. And then you might get a return where an order where you've got single size, single price. That might have been a sizing issue, but the product wasn't compelling enough for me to go back and buy a different size. So we put that down more to product. So when you look at that, and that, by the way, everyone's got a sizing tool, but everyone's return rates are still going up, right? So when you look at that, that firstly, and then we break that down by category, so you can see where the sizing issues are. So we do a kind of return rate report for every client now. Actually, we do the same thing for John, but also then you look at customers. So what percentage of your customers are responsible for the bulk of your returns? And typically you've got a very small number of customers who are driving the bulk of your returns. And then you look at the profitability of those customers. And if they're profitable, that's fine, keep going. But if they're not profitable, and depending on how unprofitable they are, you can just not send them any emails. Just take them out of your CRM and you'll get a good percentage point reduction in your return rates that way. And then we do the same thing for products. So which products, and again, if you plot your products or your SKUs on a per category, and you've got the return rate on the y-axis and you've got the volume on the x-axis, what you'll find is in the top right-hand corner, there are some products that have got a very high volume, very high return rate, and they are seeing that those products and those customers are responsible for the bulk of your return. So then what we do now at Dressipi is we will do a return rate analysis anyway when we start working with the client, so we really understand what we can do to help bring that down. But also part of what we do in the algorithm is we have obviously the purchase propensity, but also we have the return rate propensity. So we are only showing things to customers that they are likely to keep. And the problem is if your algorithm is only optimized on conversion rate, you can get your conversion rate up, but you might also be increasing your return rate. So you might actually be making your site more unprofitable, not more profitable, because you're pushing the wrong metrics. I think understanding what you're pushing and why, and if your return rate, and if you're only building your recommendations on purchases, then if those purchases are being returned at 30, 40, 50%, you're getting it wrong 30, 40, 50% of the time. So understanding how you build your algorithm to optimize for kept items is also important. So we've done a lot. I mean, I could bore you for hours on returns, but I won't. So yes, we've done a lot of work on returns, really understanding. And so and every retailer has a slightly different return rate profile, and we can look at it on channel and everything else as well. But yes, that is an area. But there are some simple things you can do, any brand can do, just by looking at the data that will, I think, taking time to state the problem and then going to solve the problem that actually exists with returns. And it's not a difficult piece of work from a data perspective either.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're suggesting is an analysis of the return, rules for each specific brand or each specific retailer in order to understand better the dynamics and the reason why behind the returns, and then optimize the algorithm based on profitability, okay, rather than maximizing the sellout.
Well, actually, yes. So I think it's being able to make sure that, so what we see, I think, at the moment, fashion retailers it's a tough market, margins are tough, cash flow is tough. So I think what we are working on now at MAP is making sure that the retailer can. So sometimes today you just need revenue, right? You just want to sell full price items. So optimizing for full price sell through. Sometimes you need cash because you need to buy next season stock. So being able to flex the algorithm to the goal and the output that you are trying to achieve. And if you're a big fast fashion retailer, sometimes on the same day you want to flex for different things. So I think that we don't do currently. We currently it's mostly optimized around the profitability, but what we're working on is being able to allow the retailer to be the conductor of their orchestra and say, right, today we need full price sell-through rate, tomorrow we need cash, the next day we need profit type thing. So that's coming, yes. But ideally, yes. So then you are in control of how you want to push that, and you can see the impact of that down the line as well.
Thank you very much. So I have a few more questions for you later, but I'd like to hear now the point of view of a retailer, an online retailer who's like offline and online and an expert. So John from House of Brewer. So would you like, first of all, to introduce yourself and to tell us what you do, a little bit about your company that is really, really interesting. And then I would like to ask you a little bit first about the organizational aspects and impacts of introducing AI in a company like yours. And also a little bit, how did you go about implementing this solution? And then also, I would like you a comment on, what we just talked about, what has been like for you the improvement in the user experience, and also if you had like the opportunity to measure any positive effects on returns. I know lots of questions, but like
you might have to remind me of those again, as I've really forgotten most of them. But yeah, I'll start. So the House of Brewer is a luxury shopping destination in the middle of the Highlands in Scotland. It's a series of buildings, and each building has a different department in it: ladies' wear, men's wear. But we also sell food. We have a gallery, fishing department. You can basically buy everything from a fishing fly to a £10,000 antique oil painting. But the majority of what we sell is clothing, and I don't have a huge amount to do with the store itself, but I manage the mail order and e-com side of the business. So everything that is direct to the customer that doesn't come to the retail site itself. And been with the company 9 years now, and we've grown from a small family business to a much bigger organization where the brand has really outgrown the sort of the retail sites, and we're very well known in the UK, but also expanding internationally. And certainly 95% of what we sell through the e-com side is clothing. In terms of Dressipi, I think we onboarded this solution, I don't know, actually 4 years ago, Sarah, something like that. Well beyond before.
I think 2021, yeah.
Yeah.
Just post-COVID, wasn't it? I think.
Well before everybody was talking about AI. And we had a recommendation engine that was just kind of native to the platform that we were using. It was pretty basic, and we were looking for something that was a bit cleverer. And Dressipi certainly seemed to fit that bill. We looked at various other recommendation engines that seemed very kind of static and inflexible. And I think what has been really surprising about Dressipi is that bit about them really getting to understand our brand and how we would go about styling clothing rather than just generic styling. And I remember a session, Sarah's stylist, talking to our brand director and him explaining how he goes about styling the outfits, and then Natalie going away and coming up with some examples and things, and he was blown away by how sort of spot on those examples were, suggestions were, and again, that kind of, although hunting, fishing, shooting is not necessarily core to what we sell now, it is core to the DNA of the business and where we kind of grew from. And so building those kind of niche products into the recommendations was really interesting process, and quite surprising how it works. So yes, what was the next question?
Well, first of all, let me say it's very interesting that dialogue with the people like the brand director or the merchandisers or creative who actually are doing the work on the product, and then they meet the AI and they say, "Okay, oh, amazing! It's actually like correct." Okay, so they seem like always a bit surprised when you present them with solutions that are or results that are actually correct and they work for the look or for the user experience. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how was the implementation project. What were the impacts on the organization? Any changes that you had to make? And then also we go into the business, like did you see a benefit on returns, or what were your expectations at the beginning and what were your learnings after?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So another complexity around our website is that we have, because we have our own brand and then we have lots of other brands that we sell. Our imagery is not consistent, so we have lots of products where we have a lifestyle outside shot, and then there are other products where we have a model shot in the studio, and then some products where we just have cutout shots. And those, and it's not consistent which one of those or variety of those we have for each product. So, and we were very clear that we wanted the right type of product shots to be shown within the recommendations rather than it being just a mixture and it looking jumbled. So I can't quite remember how we achieved this, but that was part of the kind of brief for onboarding, and that has been achieved. So our recommendations only use the correct shots. So that was part of it. It was a while ago, so I can't remember too much about the onboarding, but I certainly don't remember
Let's
it
maybe talk
being.
about working through the A/B test that we did. Just to, I think what was important to
Yes,
us was that we managed to test it. I think,
that's true.
yeah, for us at Dressipi, making sure that we do not want to be anywhere we are not adding proper real value. So what's important to us is that we test everything we do to make sure that it keeps everybody honest, I suppose. So maybe worth talking through how we did that as well.
That's true, and because we didn't test versus no recommendations. We tested versus our existing recommendation engine. So when we're doing anything, wherever possible, we A/B test and we look for the incremental value rather than just a site with no recommendations versus Dressipi. And we saw a 3% increase in sales of certain products, as well as an increase in conversion rate, which translated, I think, to a 5% uplift incremental value. And that's what we saw initially. And we did some experimenting with moving. So we've got outfit recommendations and we've got similar products, and we kind of flipped those around and did some different testing before we settled on the layout that we've got at the moment, which is outfit recommendations followed by similar products underneath. And we believe, although we were approaching peak and we wanted to switch it on for everybody, so we did that quite quickly. We believe that those recommendations are probably driving additional value to what we saw in the initial test as the algorithm learned more about our products and more about our customers. But we haven't retested that, but I think we might do that this year
Yeah, we
at some
really want
point.
to do that.
And that'll be really interesting to see what the actual increases are after this amount of time. But yeah, there's a very, very definite and very immediate impact and uplift from having the recommendations in place versus our generic recommendations that we had previously.
Okay, so first of all, testing, carrying out A/B test, comparing the user behavior with the solution implemented and without the solution implemented. Then, of course, you can compare different types of solutions, which one perform better for your specific brand or for your specific company, and so you get to a conclusion on what is the uplift and if the solution is like providing a correct return on investment. But did you have a personal, contact with the users or feedback from the users? Did you have a chance to have, customers' opinions or who tried the recommendations? Anything like that?
No, I don't think we have had that. I mean, I think recommendation engines are so prevalent that customers wouldn't think that that was a novelty particularly. But I think, say internally, we recognise that the outfits are in line with what we would expect them to be as a brand. And I think the data kind of speaks for itself, really, where people are engaging with the widgets, with the recommendations, and the increase in purchase rate, etc. Kind of states points to the fact that they are appreciating them.
Yeah, of course, like not every time we have the opportunity to hear directly from the voice of the customers, but what you're saying about the engagement with the recommendations, that's an important data. So you track how much the customers are engaged with the recommendations.
We do, and although Sarah reports on the kind of the overall uplift, she's also reporting on that incremental between what we saw with our original recommendation engine and what we're seeing now. So we're getting we're seeing the sort of true value, if you like, rather than just the whole engagement. We're seeing what the incremental uplift is between what we had and what we have now.
So I would expect like also two types of benefits of our results. On one hand, of course, a reduction in returns, but that depends also on how much effort you put in before to create the looks or to give personalized recommendations even without AI. So that could be, let's say, a separate discussion. But I would expect also a benefit in terms of visual merchandising work or creating the looks manually. So did you notice any savings in that regard?
So yeah, we have tried some manual recommendations. So we have our catalog images, and we kind of put the data together with those recommendations so that they are available to people online as well. But the trouble is, as soon as one product went out of stock or something went out, they deteriorate quite quickly as the stock decreases. Where the great benefit of Dressipi is that the stock is taken into consideration, the stock of that person's size is taken into consideration. So people are never seeing things that are either out of stock or unavailable. So there's a massive benefit in not having to put that kind of manual data together, and the customer sees something that's a lot more personalized to them anyway.
Yeah, no, that's very important also from both perspective, both like the work that the less rework that needs to be done, constantly updating the looks or the suggestions manually, and on the other end, also on the user's end, they see only recommendations from products that are actually available, correct?
That's right. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
And where do you see, do you have an idea or are you envisaging like moving forward with the recipe and what you're thinking about doing in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the other surprises for me is over the time that we've been using it, is just how much contact and how hands-on Sarah and the team have been. So we have a meeting most weeks where Sarah talks very quickly at us as she has done today. But that's great. And we're actually using the data in various ways, which you might like to talk about in a minute. But we certainly intend on expanding and testing Dressipi recommendations on the product listing page at the top of the page as a widget, and also in the basket to try and increase the basket size. So they're things that we are planning on doing a bit later on this year. We're also testing the recommendations on email communication at the moment. So we've just started doing that, and I think that's going to be very interesting, and we can get themed recommendations from Sarah's team and manipulate which recommendations we're showing to which customers on those emails. And if that starts to look good, then we will add them onto our automated email journeys as well at some point.
That sounds very interesting. Okay, thank you, John, for the moment. I'd like to go back to Sarah and expand a little bit on the topic. Then we can go back to proper e-commerce and optimization part. I wanted to ask you, you heard about the news in search results, right? And how search engine optimization is changing, the user experience is changing with like the agentic checkout and the experience, shopping experience, all contained within the chat with ChatGPT or Google AI. So how can we use, or if it's possible, how can we use Dressipi also to optimize our product information and our websites for search? And do you see also a possible use of Dressipi also to expand on different channels, marketplaces, different countries? Have you thought about that? Do you have any plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing, so we are obviously this huge, I think it used to be the slow pace of fast change. I now feel like it's the fast pace of fast change when you look at what AI is doing and how people discover brands and what that discovery journey looks like. And because it's all LLM based, I think it's so important to have that context. I think we have had to train ourselves over the last 10, 15 years to search by black dress wedding, right? That's not the natural. When you go into a store and you're looking for a shirt, it's not how we naturally speak to the store assistant. So ChatGPT is now allowing us to go back to how we want our natural language search. So I'm looking for a pencil skirt for work that's smart but a bit glamorous, or whatever it is. So that language that we use needs to be somewhere discoverable in your metadata on your site. So where people have been optimizing for SEO, which will continue to have a place, we now need to start to optimize for that natural language search. So Dressipi now, it's now been bought by Map. So as Map now, what we are making sure is that we can pass that data back to any retailer. So however you want to use it, whether it's in your Google search, in your Google shopping, we've done some testing on actually putting it into the paid ads, but understanding for each product that you sell, what are the most important features of that product that stand out and that are relevant from a natural language search perspective. And interestingly, I don't know if you saw, but Google brought out their virtual try-on thing this week, which is great if you know exactly what you want, but most of us don't know what we want and we don't know what looks good on us. So, I mean, when we started Dressipi, we had 160 different body shapes and every single feature has coding as to whether that looks good on that person or not. So amazingly, we can now put all of that into the LLMs. So if you say, maybe in 2 or 3 years, you'll send your mini me out to go and find you some options to wear for your event, and it will come back with 20 options. But making sure that those options all look amazing on you. So it's understanding where the world is going, and that how people discover and your brand is so important. So how do you build that brand essence into the language that you use and how people find you? So I think that language, and the problem is, what we see. So as we've been integrating with Map, we've done about 36 interviews with C-suite execs, really understanding to make sure that where we end up with Map and Dressipi together is as relevant and as critical to our market as possible. And what we're hearing, everyone's replatformed, everyone's bought new tech, but nothing is moving the needle. And actually, when you look at everyone buying all this new tech, and you've got all these different platforms, the thing is, these platforms don't talk to each other. So you end up with lots of new platforms which solve for a piece, but there's no common language. There's no ability to help those different platforms to translate the language of the customer. So one really key thing that seems to be forgotten with all these new brilliant bits of technology is the customer language and how they want to interact with retail and how they want to interact specifically with fashion. So we are able to put that natural language back into either the core metadata of the site, but it means that you can create brand experiences that people will want to go and understand. So the old kind of homepage PLP, PDP has a place, but actually people arrive on your PDP, which is the end of the journey. So how do we start to understand the intent and the mindset so we can change that experience? And that language piece is absolutely critical to how that starts to evolve.
Okay, so we have, let's say we have the data, or divided into different levels, like product data, context data, fit data. Probably we also need to consider the customer fitting characteristics to fit it into the suggestion process. So it seems like also we have the integration issue. Okay, so we have several platforms. We have the e-commerce platform, product information management system. We have the
Merchant
market.
search, CDP. Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. We
yeah.
probably have like 10 different e-commerce platforms solutions that speak with each other. They talk also to marketplaces via a connector, for example. Um, so my question is, how important is to define the processes behind content creation or data management? Sorry, we didn't talk about this question, but it comes naturally to me.
Yes, I think it is important. And so you're looking at, so with the data processes, I think it's such a key part, and I think it's about really empowering the whole team with that piece. So understanding how you use that data and how that data needs to sit across, and it's a shared data layer, so it's relatively straightforward to put in place. But the processes that there is some process, but once the data's in and it can be accessed, and when you can start to analyze and understand your customers in the context of that language, you get unbelievably powerful segments, right? So rather than having your RFM piece, which is great from a business objective, but actually doesn't really drive. I mean, we were talking to Le Chameau, they sell a very expensive wellies, okay? So they Wellington boots, and they have like 60 options of Wellington boots. And rather than splitting their customers by an RFM basis, they have identified 5 personas based on much better data. So they've got their equestrian customer, they've got their pro farmer customer, they've got their very posh person who lives in London and goes to the country at the weekend. They've got 2 others, right? So suddenly how they shoot their wellies. So when someone comes back, they understand which persona they sit in. So how they shoot their products, how they talk about their products are all focused around those segments, which are so much more powerful because it's about the customer. So that's what Map and Dressipi can allow. So understanding when you've got this rich data set, how does that help you? So if you're looking at a vector, how do your customers cluster? And actually, what are the segments that are meaningful? And then passing that back to your creative team, or making sure the language you use maybe changes per customer. So there's this richness of understanding how do you deliver experiences that are so gorgeous and so perfectly relevant to each of those segments that you're driving just a beautiful experience. They want to come to your site, they want to see, because it feels like you just get them, it feels like you just understand them, and that's a key part of that. So I think those processes, and then it can't be an afterthought. I think the data layer is the foundation, and it has to be the foundation. Once that foundation is in place, understanding how that can get used by all parties within the business, so that you can drive, a more effective and more profitable business as well.
Yeah, and okay, so if I understood correctly, in one of the numbers I've read, through your system, we can create up to 10,000 different values for product attributes. Did I get it right?
Yeah, so we have a few thousand actual distinct attributes.
Attributes,
But then
yes.
the combinations of those attributes, depending on customer, segment, profile type, you end up with kind of tens of thousands of attributes. Yes.
Yeah, so the combination of like the different attributes
Yeah.
multiplied by the variations of these attributes can create actually can arrive to up to 10,000 different values of attributes. I know it's quite technical, but for all the people connected, you have to imagine like what can you do with like 10,000 different values? Like describe your products in 10,000 with 10,000 little attributes. And you also said we need to start optimizing for natural language. Okay. So the search engines are now starting to speak the natural language, the language spoken by people. So what do I wear next week when I go to a wedding in Edinburgh? Okay. So, and the search engine should answer with the correct answers. Um, so, and at this point, what part again is like automated in your opinion, and which part instead requires again the people or the team to contribute to creating these answers? It's a genuine question because the output for a company, for a brand, could be like a blog post, okay? Could be like a news, could be the description, the product description of a product, could be the description of a specific landing pages or a gallery for specific occasions like a ceremony. So there are several different outlets or channels where brands and retailer can use this product data, including, as I said before, marketplaces. So if I want to optimize my product feed for a different marketplace in US, differently from Europe,
Yeah.
probably I should use different data sets.
Language, absolutely. And so we obviously MAP has a big Italian. So we're doing obviously Italian, so we can do different languages, different geographies, and obviously the American English and British English is very different as well. But yes, so we have started to test. So with House of Brewer, we started to test putting the product data into the Google shopping feed, and where we have had more success is actually saying, right, here's a product. What is, other than being a shirt, what is the most important feature of that shirt? Is it the fact that it's a tweed or, so then we put that in the product type. So extending the product type to the most important feature so cashmere coat or, that has been most successful. We've also added the metadata onto the pages from an SEO perspective. And we're also using it in the filters and facets as well. So that rather than filter, you can filter by neckline, or, we know that for dresses, there are certain features which are more and less important to customers, and different for trousers and different for coats and everything. So those, and that seems to be, we haven't tested all of them, but all those areas are getting better. So it seems to be having a positive effect, but I couldn't tell you exactly what that is. But yes, I think and then what we can now do with MAP as well is we can create landing pages. So if you have come from social and you're landing on the PDP, it's probably not where. So we can create really lovely landing pages which are in keeping with not only the intent but also the occasion. So depending where so if you've come from search and you're looking for dresses, then you want to see just dresses, right? You want to see the 20 top dresses that help to achieve that goal, and then you want to find the one that's right for you. Whereas if you're an existing customer and you've come back and you're a new in, then you want to see lots of gorgeous stuff that inspires you to make that impulse purchase. You want to see amazing bags and shoes and everything. So the experience you want to have, depending on your mindset, the intent, and the context in which you're purchasing, and where you sometimes in the journey, you just want to come and have a look. You discovered a new brand on Instagram. You want to have a look, in which case you just want to see branded. You want to see the brand. You want to experience it. You may not necessarily buy, but we want to keep you there for as long as possible. So you are engaging with the brands. And next time you come back, you understand the brand and you're more likely to buy. So understanding where they are in their journey with the brand. And then, so there's lots of places you can use it. And it all depends. I think it's a case, so different retailers will want to do things differently, and that is absolutely up to them. And that's the flexibility that we are offering, is that it's completely up to them where they want to spend their resources, and where they're spending their marketing resources, and how we can help them to optimize any one of those. And the data makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and also for this reason, I would like to hear from John again. John, what do you think? Like, do you use like the AI and Dressipi solution more for like the transactional part, or are you planning to also leverage it for editorial, marketing, other channels?
Not so much the editorial side. I think the data, and there is a huge amount of data created by the tool, and I mean we've very much seen that as an added value so far. As Sarah said, we had a problem with our facets and filters where it was just very inconsistent. It had been, the attributes had been added manually by different copywriters at different times. It was inconsistent, and we just scrapped all of that and then used the Dressipi data to kind of recreate it. And there's a lot of data. We had to kind of map different attributes together to cut it down to a manageable number for the website. But now we have very consistent facets. And again, it's very hard to put ROI against some of these things. And the data that we put into the metadata on the PDP page to help SEO, we don't know the value of that, but it's just common sense that using a huge amount of very relevant data and having that available is going to be a benefit to us over time, and hopefully, by the sounds of it, even more value as the natural language element becomes more and more important. So I think, and then the testing with the product feed for Google Shopping as well. There's some very really interesting and very positive results
Great.
from that through. So I think there's lots. It's a huge pot of data. It absolutely makes sense to use it. We've kind of seen that as added value rather than the core product itself. But I think there will be more and more ways of using this data in the future.
And what is it like the management of these data from like an integration perspective, from a technical perspective? What does your IT manager say about the whole solution? Can you tell us?
I mean, it's been pretty straightforward in terms of data feeds. Slightly out of my area, but I mean, it's just CSV files, I think, on FTP sites that are then picked up and processed. So I don't think that hasn't been a difficult process at all, and getting data into our feed agency for the PPC, that hasn't been difficult. I think probably the biggest difficulty is just the volume of data, and for the facets and filters particularly, kind of trying to map that down to a manageable number has been the biggest chunk of work. But it's been a good investment, and now we've done that. It's stable and it's robust and it's consistent.
So one last question, and then we open up to questions from the audience. Do you play a role, or somebody in your company plays a role as quality assurance of the data? So is there someone who checks the quality of the data, of the outputs?
No, not specifically. I think the whole team does to a certain extent. If there was, particularly with setting up the facets and filters, that was a piece of work that went backwards and forwards between service team and our team, and that did take a few weeks, but again, the service team are incredibly reactive. So we only have to send over a couple of examples of something that's not quite right, and it gets fixed. And I think that sort of level of personal service and reactivity is hard to find in sort of these sort of tech solutions that are, in my experience anyway. Things aren't so adaptable to us in other spheres, I would say. So that's been a real benefit of working with Dressipi. We don't have anybody integrally just checking that data, but there's lots of people checking, spotting mistakes or anything. So throughout the whole organization, it's just part of what we do, I suppose.
And definitely there are occasions where for some reason things get mislabeled, but it gets picked up very quickly. And we have a very rigorous QA process on our side as well. But sometimes if the outfits, like we had a problem with some of the images where, depending on, so we ended up having to write a new script so the images were showing the right. So there's things that we pick it up very quickly, and actually anyone on a site sees those things. So yes, so all of those things do get picked up, but we are very responsive with that. And sometimes if a product feed changes and we don't know, then we won't change the stuff on the back end. So it's just making sure that there's the right levels of communication so that if there is an issue, we can fix it immediately.
Great, excellent. So if Sarah and John don't have anything to add in the immediate, I would open up for questions. So for everyone, if you would like to raise your hand and open your microphone and ask a question, you can do that. Or you can ask a question in the chat that you should see in the chat. And in the meantime, since we've been talking about also SEO and search. I just wanted to share with all of you that Digital Fashion Academy is organizing an online masterclass specifically for SEO with AI, so search engine optimization with AI, in which we'll talk about the changes in the user experience with the UAI search, as you probably heard from the news about Google. And you just need to go online on our website, digitalfashionacademy.com, and look for our SEO AI masterclass. Okay, so questions for Sarah and John.
Anyone?
Don't be shy. Feel free to open your microphone and ask. Oh, I see
Hello,
some.
this is Shaq. Hi guys,
Hi, Shaker.
nice to meet you all. I have one question about the implementation. Everything is clear in terms of capabilities and what the tool does. I have a question about the implementation. Is it an implementation that heavy tech involvement from the company's side, or are there any basically ways to integrate through, for example, marketing tools such as Google Tag Manager? I've been working with a couple of tools previously, and some of them offer this type of implementation.
So you talk about the implementation. So the implementation is, so there's different ways that we implement depending on how you want to use the services. If it's just the product data, we need a product feed and we just send it back. So that can be done either as a CSV or via an API, so depending on how you want to receive it. If it's the personalization, we can either do that through a SDK that calls an API. So you can either server side, so it depends on how you want to do it, but it's all relatively straightforward. And then obviously with MAP, they have a CDP kind of, so depending on which bits of the solution. Does that make sense? Is that
Yes, that's clear. Sorry, my mic was
right.
up. Yeah, sorry. I just noticed that. Yeah, that's clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, Shakir. So we have a question also from Bilal about the use of Arabic. Have you ever tried it, Sarah?
So we have had a Middle Eastern client. So we do a lot of it was a luxury client, and it was around. So we do understand modesty. So we've done it from a styling point of view. We haven't done it from a language point of view. So no, we have, but we can do translations, but we have not done the product data in Arabic yet. No. But we can do the styling and we understand the modesty pieces, and that bit is already inbuilt into the to the AI.
Yeah, of course, that's a particularly complex language to process, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Bilal, also for the question. Okay, well, let's wait another couple of minutes.
I think if anyone has any questions, and they obviously feel free to email me if you want to. I'm very happy to answer anything, data or outfitting or personalization related as well.
Well, I start to thank you both, Sarah and John, and all the participants today. I think it's been a intense, very interesting discussion. And in the meantime, we have a question from Yasmin. Can Dressipi be used for B2B platform?
So what do you mean? So yes, we can. So can you just explain the platform? So is it a marketplace? Is that what you mean? Or sorry.
It's in the chat. I don't know, Yasmin, if you want to explain your case.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, actually, I think even more so when you're taking lots of products from lots of different brands, the data tends to be even less consistent. So yes, absolutely. And then when it comes to putting outfits together, there are often rules about what brands can be seen together and what. So there's a bit more kind of there's some business rules that need to be put in place, often just to make sure that it always looks lovely and everybody's happy. But yes, that's absolutely it works very well. The bigger the SKU count, the more important it is, I think, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin, for the question. So I don't know if you, Sarah, want to leave your email for questions, for follow-ups.
So now that we are a map company, please do feel free to email me. And if I can help, then we would love to, obviously. I seem to put it in a direct message. How do I?
Yes, probably. Okay, you have to select.
Sorry. So send that to the wrong. Sorry, my fault. Sorry. User error, as always. Can you see that?
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much also for sharing your email and for this interesting conversation. And thank you, John. It's been a pleasure having you today. And for everybody, it's been lovely to see you all today connected. And for any questions, feel free to write to Sarah or to myself. You should have my contact details. So talk to you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.